Welcome, everybody. We're so delighted that you've chosen to spend this evening with us learning about freedom vigils and how you and your community can fight back against the Trump mass detention and deportation agenda. I'm Noelle D'Amico, Director of Social Justice at the Workers' Circle. And we are so glad that you're here tonight. Would you start off the night with us by just introducing yourself in the chat? Let us know where you're coming in from. And Rio, let's call out where are people zooming in from tonight?
Yeah, love to see people introduce themselves in the chat. Let us know your name, where you're calling in from. I know that we have people from all across the country joining us this evening. Greenwood, Indiana, Phoenix, Arizona, LA,
That's
California,
great. All
Virginia,
right, the
Washington,
Bronx.
D.C. Oh, wow, already across the map. San Antonio, Texas, Sanibel, Florida. I love it. Wow, this is so exciting to see the national representation that we have here and hopefully lots of new freedom vigils popping up across the country because we know it is so needed and this is such an effective organizing tool as we'll be hearing a lot about tonight. Really excited that so many folks are interested in learning more and we have a great program to share lots of really valuable and helpful information.
We really do. And thank you again for joining tonight. Keep rolling in the chat. We're so glad that you've come tonight because we know that it's we the people who ultimately are going to make the difference in whether we are able not only to stop mass detention and deportation, but also to hold on tight to our democracy. So thank you for being with us. For those of you who have no knowledge of the Workers' Circle, don't worry about a thing. We're going to tell you exactly who we are and why we love so much working in coalition with other wonderful pro-democracy, pro-immigrant organizations. The Workers' Circle is a national secular Jewish social justice organization that has been around for more than 125 years. We were founded in the early 1900s by Eastern European Jewish people who were fleeing pogroms and persecutions. And they came to these shores seeking democratic freedoms and wanting to build a better and more beautiful world for everyone. And it's that history that drives our work for democracy and for human rights today. And as you can imagine, so many of you, I'm sure, have your own family stories, your own cultural stories, your own organizational stories for why you're involved in this fight. If you just take a minute in the chat, what motivates you right now to stand up for not only the rights of immigrants, but our constitutional rights, our democracy? What inspires you? Maybe it's a person, maybe it's an ideal, maybe it's part of your tradition. We welcome you to share that in the chat right now.
Those
And
are
more
such
people are joining every minute. Human rights, look at that.
I
Yes.
love those framing questions, Noel, and all of that history that you mentioned that the Worker Circle has really leads up to this moment that we're in right now, where our country is very much at a crossroads, to say the least, and the actions that we take now will truly shape the future of our own lives and everyone that is yet to come. And no matter whether you are a seasoned organizer or just kind of dipping your toes in because you're sick and tired and outraged by what you're seeing in the news, there is so much that you can do, and there are such uh, important, critical things that you can get started on right away in organizing a freedom vigil and getting connected with others in your community who are already taking action or maybe just interested in taking action. And we've put together a really helpful framework, we think, that has already been deployed in communities across the country. We'll be hearing from a lot of folks that are already running with this model to help call out the abuses and call for accountability and demand accountability and actually win some real accountability, as we'll be hearing about tonight as well.
So we're going to pass it over now to our Freedom Vigils national organizer, Jessica Burrows. And Jessica is going to take us through the program and give you a sense of what's ahead. Take it away, Jessica.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It is really an honor to be here with all of you tonight. Thank you for joining on a busy Monday night. We love all this energy and enthusiasm, and we have an exciting call planned for tonight. We're going to open with a conversation between the key founders and leaders of the Alligator Alcatraz Vigil and share some news about Alligator Alcatraz, which is the inaugural Workers' Circle Vigil. From there, we'll head to Chantilly, Virginia, where we'll hear from a vigil organizer who has recently started organizing vigils there and has tips and lessons learned that we want her to share with you. And all throughout, we will be answering your questions about what is a freedom vigil and why a freedom vigil. And we will be offering tools and opportunities to support you with your vigils on this call and afterwards in follow up. Please put any questions you have throughout this call into the chat and we will answer them there. And all throughout the call, starting now, we will be dropping the link to our form. I'm interested in starting a freedom vigil. Please fill it out and we will be in touch with you soon. Before we go further, I'd like to thank our wonderful co-sponsors of this call who have provided outreach and support for this call, and we are so grateful to all of them for their collaboration. There are 12 co-sponsors, so let's give it up for Move On, Voto Latino, Coalition on Human Needs, Mississippi Immigrants' Rights Alliance, League of Women Voters, St. Petersburg area. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you. Avodah, Faithful America, Jews for a Secular Democracy, Sojourners, B'nai Jeshurun, Truah, and the Robert and Ethel Kennedy Human Rights Center. Thank you to all of you. Now passing it back to you, Noel.
So, some of you may have heard the news, and that is that Alligator Alcatraz, that cruelly named detention center, put up in 8 days in the heart of the Everglades on protected land, on Miccosukee land, that horrible place that is notorious for inhumane treatment, including torture. That alligator Alcatraz is teetering right now on the verge of closure. Why is that? It is not only the pressure from legal suits, it is not simply, oh, Governor Ron DeSantis suddenly thought maybe this isn't such a good idea. The reason that Alligator Alcatraz is teetering on the verge of closure right now is because we have built together in Florida an incredibly powerful movement of people that has shown up week after week outside the gates of Alligator Alcatraz since August the 3rd. We are now in our 43rd week of vigils this week. More than 5,000 people have made their way from all parts of Florida down into the Everglades. And we built a very big tent movement. Down there are not just progressive people or liberal people or immigrant rights advocates. Yes, they are all there. But in addition, we have students, we have veterans, we have small business leaders, we have people of faith of all backgrounds and traditions there. And interestingly, my friends, we have people of all different political backgrounds. Down there in Florida, we not only have Democrats and Republicans, we also have independents and water voters. What we are saying with these vigils is that this isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a moral issue. And when we can gather in power and bear witness to the harm that's being done and insist together that it must end, we can and we will defeat this jewel in the crown of the Trump detention deportation regime. And that will be but the first battle. So tonight we're going to share lessons from what we've learned down there with you. You'll have the opportunity to ask lots of questions. And without further delay, let me pass it back to Jessica and we'll get started.
Okay, thank you, Noel. So you've met Noel, and I'd like to invite forward two of the other organizers and leaders of the Alligator Alcatraz Vigil for a conversation. Welcome, Noel, Ariane, and Arthur. Ariane and Arthur, please briefly introduce yourselves before we jump in with the questions. Ariane?
You're muted right now, Ariane.
Whoops. My name is Ariane Betancourt. I'm the community catalyst of South Florida for the Workers Circle. I've been attending the vigils for 27 weeks and counting. And I started attending the vigils as a daughter of someone detained in Alligator Alcatraz. I started attending the vigils as a daughter of someone detained at Alligator Alcatraz, and now I've kind of become part of the reason that it's going to be shut down. And so
Thank you so much, Ariane, and we look forward to hearing more about your story during this conversation. Arthur, great to see you. How are you?
Feeling much better now. Thank you very much. Backstory, everybody. I had a root canal earlier today, and a crown, and some other laser treatment,
But he
and
still
so
showed up for our community of practice call from the dentist chair. So that is the kind of dedication and commitment we're seeing in this movement. So please briefly describe who you are.
yeah, absolutely. So my name is Arthur Jones. I am the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Fort Myers. I am also a hospice chaplain. It has been an honor and a privilege to work alongside Worker Circle, um, and Jessica and my good friend Noel D'Amico, and Ariane. It's been great. We had a robust turnout yesterday, there. The weather cooperated. We've, again, as was mentioned just now, it's our 31st consecutive Sunday, which is fantastic. We had lots of media there. So we're doing everything we can to make a positive impact, um, not just in our region and not just there at the site, but also in our corner of the world.
Thank you so much. So before we get to the present, let's backtrack a bit and going to you first, Noel. Why the vigil format? And what is the origin story of the vigil, at the Freedom Vigil at Alligator Alcatraz, which is our inaugural vigil at the Workers' Circle?
Well, we saw Alligator Alcatraz being built in 8 days in the Everglades. We knew we couldn't stop the building and that it was going to be a blueprint for state-run detention centers across this nation and for a new mass detention plan. So even though we couldn't stop it from being built, we knew we had to get out there as quickly as possible with as many people as possible from the South Florida region and say a profound and moral no to the abductions, detentions, to the deportations, and even, yes, disappearances of our neighbors, our family members, and our friends. So, this is what I want to say. Friends, there wasn't anything grand about how it started. It's just a patch of sandy soil across from the entrance to Alligator Alcatraz on Route 41. And how it started is I just picked up the phone in July and started calling people that I knew in Florida. I reached out to wonderful faith leaders. I connected with people like Arthur. I connected with Reverend Tony Fisher in Naples. I connected with Reverend Roy Terry in Naples. I called over to Miami. I met wonderful leaders like Rabbi Rachel Greengrass and Rabbi Jacobson from the East Coast. And we started talking as clergy and as individuals of faith. We reached out early to people who were leaders in the immigrant community, people who were longtime residents in the area, and said, how how can we create an ongoing presence in front of that entrance? And we determined what two things were important. One, we needed to be physically present. And two, we needed to not do it once, but we needed to do it repeatedly. We chose the vigil format because vigils are different than a straight protest. They are a form of protest, but they are more than that. And because vigils are not exactly equatable with protest, they attract people who traditionally might never go to a protest. They will go to a vigil. And the vigils still, they're spirited. They have all different kinds of tone and energy and expression as a part of them. But they protect not only our First Amendment rights are protected when we're vigiling, but we have a great number of people of faith involved. So religious expression as well is protected as we engage in these vigils. We determined from the very beginning that we had to build the broadest tent possible of people, and that while we were going to disagree on any number of other things, that we were going to focus explicitly on ending the detentions and shutting down Alligator Alcatraz. We were very clear about that, and we allowed those differences among us to just be. We just respected one another and we came together. And that's how it got started, very humbly. We got down there one Sunday, and there we were, 85 people all of a sudden. And we sent a little press release out, and the press showed up, and we were off to the races. And that's how it began down at Alligator Alcatraz. And I want to say an explicit thank you to the many different organizations, communities of faith, to the unions, and to all the individuals who have been so consistent in showing up, in spreading the word, and in speaking out.
Thank you. I'd love to hear from you, Arthur. What does it feel like at the vigil? Like, what is the experience like? Could you describe it to us?
Absolutely. I know that there are quite a few people who have expressed an interest in going, but they're afraid. They're not sure of what they might find there, what it might smell like, or look like, or feel like, or sound like. Um, there's really not an accurate way of describing it outside of being there. Um, we are all together. We are safe. We have safety monitors. We have people who are trained to make sure that the organizers and the people of conscience and the clergy members who come down every week and participate are safe from all aspects. So safety is not a concern. Um, I think that the one good thing that's come out of these prayer vigils, aside from our steadfast advocacy of the detainees and their loved ones, and the reaffirming of their humanity, has been the sense of community that has built around these prayer vigils. You go there and you go there early and you arrive, what you see are people shaking hands, hugging each other, kissing each other, high-fiving each other. It's awesome. And then we come together and we sing and we chant and we pray together and we lift up our voices and we send our love across that street. And we definitely believe that they can hear us across that street. And once it's done, once we conclude the prayer vigil, what you see at the end is exactly what you saw before it began: handshakes, hugs, high fives, people exchanging contact info. You see media members in interviewing people. Um, it is a wonderful experience, a beautiful experience, and it's really humbling to be a part of.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Ariane, I'd love to turn it over to you. My question for you is, what has been the impact of vigils for families and people being detained? But would also love if you feel like it, to share the latest update of what's going on with your father and the impact.
When I first attended the vigils, I immediately told my dad about vigils. I was like, there are 100 people outside of Alligator Alcatraz every Sunday standing in solidarity with our cause. And his first reaction was like, wow, people actually care. Like this, people actually came over here. And then um it became a habit of every Sunday he would try to call me in the afternoon after he got what they considered dinner. And he would ask me, and other detainees would ask, how many people were at the vigil? How was the vigil? And it became not just a spark of hope for me, who was there week per week, experiencing new ways to hope, but also for the people in there who think they've been forgotten or who have no family, who they can call and ask for help. Just to know that there are people who are dedicating every Sunday to standing with them, for them, it it's created a lot of hope for those guys. And I'm in contact with a lot of the families and detainees, and they the one thing they all say is thank you for showing up, thank you for being there. We thought that the world had forgotten about us, and we haven't, and we're not going to, and we're not going to allow what has happened there to be forgotten either. um my dad was released last week, and the story doesn't end with them being released. He went in there diabetic with neuropathy and his mental health conditions, and he's coming out um having had 4.5 months of mini strokes that were unattended. They released him with an ankle monitor and restrictions on when he could leave the house. So for the first 2 days, he couldn't get medical attention. And even when he arrived in a hospital, he couldn't receive medical attention because he has an electronic device strapped onto him. So the story doesn't end after. And I think that's what the Vigils has helped all of the families connect the pieces of what's happening during detention, what's happening after detention, and what happens if there is a deportation. The Vigils have helped families create a network, a community, where we have figured out what is going inside of those tents, even though they've been trying to keep it from the world since the day they opened. And the families have been what has gotten the families coming together and realizing my issue and your issue is the same. So instead of just suffering alone, let's put everything that we know together and let's figure this out. And if once Alligator Alcatraz gets shut down, we're going to be able to celebrate because we know that we took a part in dismantling the system and not just sitting back and allowing the system to break us like it's designed to.
Thank you so much, Ariane. And one thing that the Workers Circle and we and Ariane can help support you with is how to connect to immigrant rights groups and families of detainees to help support those vigils. Okay, we have time for one more question for each of you. So going back to you, Noelle, could you share some of the impacts that this vigil has had?
Absolutely. The first impact is the most important, and it's what Ariane pointed at. We have united people who have been directly in the target zone of this Trump administration's attacks on immigrants. We have united people who are being detained and their loved ones and the broader immigrant community with citizens who are not directly, though we are indirectly targeted. And in doing that, over time, we have built bonds of trust that make everything else possible. We flew 4 families from the vigil up to the Senate Judiciary hearings with Kristi Noem in March. Why did we do that? We did that so that family members whose loved ones are inside and who are bearing the brunt of these horrors were able to look her in the eye. Look her in the eye and demand accountability. We went there as well to submit testimony on the record. And that testimony from the worker circle and family members generated an investigation by Senators Durbin and Ossoff into the use of torture at Alligator Alcatraz. In addition, family members themselves have been pressuring members of Congress to show up at the vigils, to do unexpected visits at Alligator Alcatraz and demand entrance and learn what's going on inside. Recently, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz from South Florida went in and did a gigantic press conference and then went on the floor of the House of Representatives to call for Alligator Alcatraz's closing, denouncing the inhumane conditions inside. Importantly, people who had never been active, as they might say, politically before, even though this isn't about party, right? Hadn't been active in this way. Suddenly, we're writing letters to the editor. We're calling their lawmakers. We're penning op-eds. We're spreading the word. We're doing media interviews. These vigils were able to take the stories of people being harmed and demand coverage with them, stories that otherwise would not have been surfaced but for the relationships that we were able to build through the vigils. And so there's much more that they've accomplished, but that gives you a window into what's possible when we build these together.
Thank you so much. And so, going from that big, broad impact of these vigils, let's go back to that swampy, sandy spit of land across from Alligator Alcatraz. I was fortunate enough to fly. I live in North Carolina, so I flew down to the vigil at Alligator Alcatraz a few weeks ago, and I was just amazed at how it's like all the logistics pieces that have to fit together, and it was so smoothly run, and it was just it was beautiful because of all the logistics. It was really able to lift the visual up spiritually and make it into a really beautiful experience. A lot of that is due to you, Arthur, and all of the uh, unseen, unsung work that you're doing behind the scenes to make these vigils happen. Uh, what if you had to do to keep the vigil up and running for 42 weeks straight? And any tips or lessons you'd like to share with the audience?
First of all, I've been the beneficiary, we've all been the beneficiary of a truly visionary leader in Noel. This whole idea was born at her kitchen table, and it was born roughly a year ago. And so whenever I hear about people getting discouraged, I think about her example. I think about the power that is inherent in all of us and what amazing things can be achieved when you come together with a vision and you've got the boldness and the willingness to see that vision through to fruition. She's the reason we're on this call. She's the reason I met Ariane. She's the reason for me meeting you, Jessica. And so there is great power in we the people. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that which we forget. Sometimes we forget how good we have it, and we take our liberties and our freedoms for granted. Um, and so this has been a solemn reminder that freedom ain't free and common sense is not common anymore. So we have to fight. And in regards to what it takes to maintain this, it just takes networking. It takes talking to people. It takes inviting people to come out and be a part of it. One of the things we say frequently at the prayer vigils themselves is the people who come and give us one finger salutes and boo us or shout out their support of the president or their support of a particular party, beginning with G. Um, we're doing it for them too, because it wouldn't take a lot for any of them to also be across that street, being detained with no due process, having been charged with no crime, being fed bad food, being relegated to one shower per week, being pepper sprayed randomly for no reason or any reason. It could be them. Any one of us could be in that detention facility. And I understand that as a pastor, pastors could be over there, right? As a journalist, journalists could be over there. You don't have to commit a crime to be over there. So we're actually fighting for their rights too, even though they don't yet realize it. And so that's what keeps us moving forward. That's what keeps us engaged. That's why we send out the press releases. That's why we engage the media. That's why we engage local leaders, local members of clergy, um, civic organizations, nonprofit groups to come out and join us in this struggle. And it has been working beautifully.
Thank you so much for your incredible leadership, Arthur, and the incredible energy that you bring with you to these vigils. It really is beautiful to witness. Let's give you the last word, Ariane. What else would you like to share about the vigils, what they've meant, any other lessons learned, or any other thoughts you'd like to share?
Just not just the vigils, but organizing in general. We have everyday skills that can be applied to this. It seems like a daunting task to organize and mobilize and get with, be a part of the community. But it's just it's not it's an essential part of socializing. But you're networking at a different level because you're connecting with like-minded individuals who are pursuing the same, you know, justice. And it's up, showing up. We've kept the vigils going 42 weeks because everyone shows up, rain, shine. We all want to be there on Sunday. There is no other place that we would rather be. And that's just the honest truth. Before I started working with the Workers Circle, I connected with Noelle on the first day at the vigil within 5 minutes of being there. And I told her that I wanted to figure out ways to help, not just for my dad, but for everyone else. And Noelle found ways for me to help, and she led the way. And I ran. She anything she helped me with, I ran. But it took me being able to say, I need help. I need to learn. I need to understand, and just show up and be a sponge and just keep my hope up. And for someone in my situation, I don't think that I could have done any of the things, or my dad would be free, if it were not for the Worker Circle and these weekly vigils and everyone who attends and has stood by me. Because when my dad was released, the first thing I thought of was, we're going to be able to go on Sunday and we're going to show everyone what us standing outside of Alcatraz for 42 weeks accomplishes. How many families have been released from the very beginning? We've had lots of families released, and we all get to celebrate together because we're all standing there hoping for the same thing. And just we have to show up, and just love where we are and know that we're doing the right thing and it's for a good cause, and just show up.
Huge thank you, Ariane, Arthur, Noelle. Thank you for starting this Freedom Vigil movement, which started with Alligator Alcatraz and is now spreading across the country in 18 other places and will spread more with people on this call. Thank you so much. Okay, so now that you've heard about the Alligator Alcatraz Vigil, a little bit about it, I'd like to zoom out briefly and talk about freedom vigils in general as a winning strategy for resistance. So, freedom vigils are powerful, peaceful, community-based actions that take place outside immigrant detention centers, courthouses, jails, and other public locations tied to Trump's mass deportation and detention machinery. Or they're also held where there's a lot of foot traffic to raise awareness, like in public parks or busy intersections. So you don't have to live near a detention center to hold a freedom vigil. Vigils are a powerful way to gather communities together in solidarity, shine a light on injustice, and to demand accountability from those in power. At their core, these gatherings are about making visible what is too often hidden: the detention and deportation of immigrants and the erosion of due process rights that threaten us all. So, a significant impact of the vigils is that they show the people being unjustly detained and their families that they are not forgotten. Ariane has already shared about her father's experience and what the people inside Alligator Alcatraz, that they knew about these vigils, and they knew that people were caring about them. I want to share another story about another vigil organized outside of Baker Detention Center that was actually an adaptation of a Catholic ritual. It was held this past Good Friday and included Stations of the Cross. And they ended up right outside of Baker Detention Center. And when they did, the men who were being detained out inside whistled and shouted behind the walls. They knew that this vigil was taking place and they were communicating with the people in the vigil. Okay, so why hold a regular recurring vigil? You may already have the answer to that after hearing from people, but just to outline a few additional reasons or reiterate what you've heard. The first is moral confrontation. Vigils name the harm, often at the site where it's happening, but not always, but often. They tell the truth. They counter the violence and humiliation inside with dignity and rights on the outside. Draw. Vigils attract people, as Noelle said, who might not come to a protest. Vigils have an aura of being well respected. And like Noelle shared, some people feel safer at a vigil than a protest or other actions. Vigils are grounded in religious expression and freedom of speech. Although not all vigils are religious, they do include religious elements. Constitutionally speaking, we have a right to freedom of speech and also freedom of religious expression. Using a vigil model that involves the faith community is one more way to draw on constitutional protections for the work. Impacted families. As we've shared, we collaborate with organizations that support immigrants and invite families of detainees to join the vigils only if they feel comfortable and safe attending. Vigils offer a big tent that unite people across race, income, faith, party, and community. Vigils make noise. Press are drawn to vigils. And through the press and our presence, we are keeping immigrant detention in the public conversation. Community. As Arthur has shared, we meet each other, we support each other, building community at these vigils. The vigils allow people to find one another and create a spiritual practice and serve as a reminder that we're not alone. Creativity. They are a vessel for you to pour your creativity into. Examples include song, culture, poems, time for reflection, walking meditation, art, including murals or chalk art. Really, the sky's the limit here. Energy. Some vigils emanate joy, others are solemn, but they all have energy, a vibrancy. You can still shout out, shut it down, and we often do, and be loud. Or you could have a silent vigil where people demonstrate with what they're wearing or holding, like having chains clanking together or candles, using the imagery to make a point. Building block. Other actions can be built from vigils. Civil disobedience, marches, nonviolent actions, lawmakers' investigations, as makes sense on the ground. Vigils drive organizing on the ground. They're a place out of which more can grow. Thank you. So now, I did want to share that Freedom Vigils, we're not saying that they are the only tool in the toolbox, but they are a tool that we offer to you as one part of this movement to dismantle these detention centers. Now I'd love to invite Rachel to talk about her vigil in Chantilly, Virginia, which looks very different from the one in Alligator Alcatraz and is equally powerful. Welcome, Rachel.
Well, thank you so much. And it is an honor to be here with everyone this evening. My name is Rachel Buck. I live in Northern Virginia. And along with my wonderful co-leaders, Libby and Susan, we have started a monthly peace vigil at the ICE processing facility in Chantilly, Virginia. We got started through the Workers' Circle, which connected Libby, Susan, and I. Libby and Susan run a democracy circle through their church, and I responded, like you all responded, to an email from the Workers' Circle seeking people who are interested in starting vigils. Not one of us had any particular background in this work, but we all felt deeply compelled to do whatever we could to bring attention to and to help stop this cruel and profoundly un-American mass deportation effort. We chose the Chantilly facility because in late 2025, reports emerged describing deeply disturbing conditions there. Inadequate water, only one meal a day, overcrowding that was so severe that not everyone could lie down at the same time. There was lack of access to lawyers and medical care and intense pressure placed on detainees to self-deport. I'll tell you though, starting these vigils was actually much easier than we expected. We researched the facility so that we understood what was happening there. We committed to holding one vigil each month, and we set a date for the first one. That's the most important thing, just set the first date. Then we reached out to every group we could find on Google, faith communities, immigrant rights organizations, social justice groups, and we posted the event to local community pages. We visited the location ahead of time to figure out parking and identify a public sidewalk where people could gather. The Worker Circle supported us through these early planning conversations. They even helped us to set up an RSVP link and connected us with press contacts in hopes to bring more visibility to our vigil. Both the Worker Circle and their partner Disappeared in America shared our event on their newsletters, which helped more people hear about what we were doing. This month will actually be our third vigil. So we're early on, but our first vigil had 10 attendees, and by the second vigil, the number had grown to 50. What's been especially beautiful, though, is seeing how both small and large gatherings can be powerful in different ways. At our first vigil, the smaller size allowed us to really talk with every person that was there and to strategize together. During those conversations, we discovered that many people felt passionate about getting letters to the neighbors being held inside ICE detention. That idea ultimately bubbled up and led us to partner with another group that does those kinds of letter writing efforts. And at the second vigil, people began bringing their own talents and energy. One person offered to sing movement songs, another brought a megaphone and was willing to lead chants. Others arrived with American flags for everyone in the group. Because the gathering was larger also, we were able to split into two groups. One group remained directly in front of the ICE facility, holding signs, asking ICE agents who were constantly coming in and out of that location, how their faith, how their God calls them to treat the immigrants inside. And the second group walked a couple of blocks to a busy highway intersection where we were visible to at least 1,000 passing drivers. And there we highlighted the abuses that are occurring in that ICE facility and urged people to call their representatives to demand ongoing, unannounced inspections and to not give ICE another cent. The advice that I would give to anyone looking or curious even about starting a vigil is that it's really simple. First, people are looking for ways to raise their voice and demand change. So if you create the opportunity, they will join you. And not only just at the vigil itself, but they'll join you in follow-up actions that matter, including contacting their elected officials. Secondly, even if you're only one person, do it. Pick a date. Send emails to everyone you can think of. Show up. And on the day, bring a few words about what ICE is doing. Encourage attendees to call their elected officials to demand change. Bring a few extra signs. Let folks know that it's a nonviolent event. And when the event concludes, ask any of the attendees if they want to help you plan the next one. And my last piece of advice is to do something, because that is always better than staying silent. It's been really wonderful being with you tonight. I will pass it to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I really love how you talked about the positive benefits of it being a small vigil and then the larger vigil. So they were both equally powerful in different ways. Uh, that was really beautiful, and thank you. And we wanted everyone to see a vigil that has just recently gotten started and gotten off the ground. So thank you for inspiring others by your group, and congratulations on a five-fold increase in your second vigil. That was huge. Okay, so, oh, and also thank you, Rachel, for mentioning some of the tools that we have to offer you. Now, of course, you are welcome to hold a vigil by yourself, take action on your own, but we want you to join the Freedom Vigil movement. And here's what we have to offer you through our network. First is one-on-one organizing support. The forms that are in the chat that keep being put in the chat, if you fill that out, I will reach out to you to schedule a one-on-one call. And it's continuous, ongoing support. On our community of practice call, on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time, we hold community of practice calls where you can learn from other vigil organizers and ask questions of the group. And great themes emerge, and people support the new vigil organizers. On today's call, someone who I think is on this call, Shannon, had just held her first Freedom Vigil in Battle Creek, Michigan. So got a lot of support and love. And so it's really a supportive community. Resources for holding vigils. We offer resources including sample liturgies, scripts, poems, call and response, and other resources. We have a vigil toolkit with lots of tips and resources, including sample press releases. We offer you connection to the wider national community organizing against Department of Homeland Security and ICE. Like, for example, the recent April 25th Communities Not Cages National Day of Action. We offer national visibility through other coalitions and through the Workers' Circle, which has quite a broad reach. We offer press support as needed, equipping people for the press. And we offer social media strategy and amplification. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Rio to talk about our exciting Mobilize tool that we have to offer you too, and how you can create your vigil event on Mobilize. Rio.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Jessica. So, in case it's not already abundantly clear, if and when you choose to organize a Freedom Vigil in your own community, you will be very well supported. And you've probably noticed we've been dropping lots of links in the chat. I know I've put it in there a few times. It's a form that you can fill out to sign up for a one-on-one call with Jessica. She will meet with you and get a sense of what your background is, where you are in the country, what your interests are, anything that you might be concerned about in terms of organizing a Freedom Vigil, kind of troubleshoot anything that you might be trying to figure out before you kind of take that first step and set that first date. And she will be there and we will be there along with Noel and Ariane, myself, the whole Worker Circle team, and all of our partners to help empower you every step of the way. We were thrilled to work with Rachel and the team there in Northern Virginia, Libby and Susan, and their whole democracy circle that got that incredible Freedom Vigil off the ground that you just heard about. And we're really excited to continue meeting with folks across the country, and hopefully many of you after this call will fill out that form and take the next step. Once you are ready to actually set up your event and start promoting it, we do have this Mobilize platform here. Hopefully everyone can see my screen, where we've made it very easy for you to create an event that people can easily RSVP to. So this is a public event that you can send out over your email, post on your social media, and then let folks know about your event. So I'll just briefly walk through what we have here in case you're not familiar with Mobilize. Of course, we start with a recap of all the tools that are in the toolkit, which you can find the link to that here. Obviously, tons of resources, and I know Jessica just kind of briefly went through them, but check out the toolkit. It's very thorough, and it has everything that you might want or need to get started with this process. And that's the first step. Once you're ready to go, you can go ahead and pick your name. Freedom Vigil. It could be Freedom Vigil Boston, Freedom Vigil San Antonio, wherever you might be. If there's a detention facility in your area, you can put the name in there. If you want to call it Freedom Vigil something else, totally up to you. We've given the hosts the ability to choose your title. Community event, solidarity event is a choice there. Kind of a distinction without a difference. Whatever one seems to fit your community better. Solidarity events can sometimes be a little bit smaller. Community events might be a little bit bigger, but really it's up for your interpretation and your preference. We have some preloaded language in here in terms of the description. Of course, you can edit this, or you can just not change anything at all, but feel free to add in any specific information or other details that might better represent what your event will look like. Here you have the option to make it private. If you do want to be very judicious in terms of who you invite, you can make it a private event, and then only people with the link will see it. If you want to make it public where anybody on Mobilize can see it, of course, that's the default option, but absolutely okay to make it private if you essentially want it to be invite only. That's not a problem. Of course, we're encouraging people to meet in person. If there's a reason you want to set up a virtual one, that's absolutely an option. You can set that up there, and you can drop in the Zoom information, the live stream information there. If it is in person, and of course the vast majority of these are in person, putting in the location is very important. And we need an address for that. As I think Jessica said, these do not need to actually happen at detention facilities. If there's not a nice detention facility or any sort of immigrant detention facility in your community, that is absolutely okay. You can do it at your town square, your local courthouse, busy intersection, highway, anywhere that you think you'll be able to reach a lot of people and help carry this message. So just think about that as you determine your location. Obviously, the location, very important aspect of your event, but sky's the limit. Um, in terms of safe locations. Of course, you want to be safe in choosing your location. And then you can obviously, determine whether only attendees can see the location. If you want to make it more private, date and time, you select that here. And if you want to make it a recurring event, let us know and we can help you set that up. But this is where you just default date, time, and time. And then you put your information here. Note, this is not public. We ask for your phone number, but that is not visible to anyone, even to attendees. That's just for us, the organizers, to be able to reach out to you to help troubleshoot or answer any questions, or reach out to you if we have anything that we need to ask you. Again, not public information. You decide what your attendees can see. You can also add more information here that only attendees see. And then there's some default language here in terms of notifications that people will get from Mobilize. You can have it in English and Spanish if you want. And then lots of accessibility features here that are just kind of tied to your location. So feel free to check all the boxes that may apply to wherever you decide to hold your event. You can add additional details there. And then this is just some additional functionality that Mobilize gives to organizers. If you want people to be able to chat in a couple days before, you can do that. Basically, everyone in the RSVPs can have a little group chat if you want to. You can keep it off. But some folks find that helpful. And then, of course, very importantly, if you want to organize another person or people, you can add them here as co-hosts. Just add in their name and email address, and they'll get an invite. And then once you have that all done, you can just click this button here, host this event, and it'll go to the back end, and we will review it and approve it, and then it'll become public, and it's out on the internet for you to promote publicly or privately if you prefer. So I know we're tight on time. So Jessica, I'll kick it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Rio. And this is really a great tool that we have to offer. We have been putting the Google form into the chat. Want to try one more way? We're going to launch a quick poll. If you have filled out the form, no need to fill out this poll, or you can fill out both or just the poll. But we're going to give you a chance to fill that out with your name, email address, phone number, and location if you're interested in starting a vigil, and I will follow up with you. I just want to say that I love reading through the chat. I see you all are connecting with each other, sharing your emails. I loved even seeing people who live where I live in North Carolina. That's one beautiful thing about the Freedom Vigil community is this opportunity to collaborate in a very real, authentic way towards this common goal of stopping ICE and this massive cruelty and deportation machine. Thank you all for joining us. Please feel free to reach out uh, and fill out the poll or the form. And I am going to turn it over to Noelle to close us out.
Friends, I want to thank you for being with us tonight and emphasize something that I hope has come clear. And that is our goal at the Workers' Circle is to equip you to lead your own local community vigils, that we are going to support you every step of the way. But this is really your baby. You're going to lead this, and we're not going to leave you out there alone. There will be a community of people to support you from across the nation with whom you can share your ideas and your best practices. There's a network of support to help connect you where you may not have connections and equip you with opportunities to get your vigil up and out so that more people can find you. This is something that we believe in so strongly at the Worker Circle, that this isn't about us, it's about you. And what we need to do all across this country right now is build a local, durable infrastructure through which every person can make their voice heard with clarity and with power. And we hope that the Freedom Vigils can be one way that you will do this. We know that there are a lot of questions in the chat, and we promise we are saving the chat and we'll get back to you on all of them. I want to reiterate again that following this call tonight, you'll receive a follow-up with the recording, with all of the resources that were mentioned. And periodically, we will also set up open office hours. And these are times that you can just drop in and ask questions. In addition to our community of practice, which is running weekly, we will also have these sessions. So if you're on the fence and you're like, oh, should I do it? I really want to find out something else before I say yes. Don't worry about it. Say yes, and we're going to keep you informed on office hours where you can drop by and ask the questions that are important to you. I want to thank everyone who from our Freedom Vigil community who has been working so hard locally all across the country. I want to thank especially our speakers tonight who shared their experiences, and I hope you were as inspired as I am, especially by the Chantilly, Virginia Vigil. Folks, I just want to really tip my hat to you for your energy and your creativity. And I thank all of you for coming tonight. We know that the only way forward is through. And we believe that the power of we the people will spell the end of this horrible authoritarian moment in our nation's history. That together we will be the bulwark for democracy, and that it will be through the work of our hands that we will achieve an end to this horrible abduction, detention, deportation, and disappearance of our neighbors, family members, and friends, and once more be a nation of human rights and freedom for every single person. Thank you for being with us. Good night, take good care, and we'll see you on the front lines.
Thank you. Good night, friends.